O episódio que se segue é o resultado da parceria entre o Podcast Há Conversa Com e a NOVA Entrepreneurship Society, em que, juntos, fizemos a conferência titulada How Can Politics Promote Entrepreneurship e realizámos na NOVA SPE. Aqui tem a gravação da mesma conferência, assim como todos os meses existirá uma conferência organizada pelo podcast e pelo NES, nesse sentido de fazermos as conferências ou as conversas de empreendedorismo, daí ser Entrepreneur Talks. E serão episódios sempre em inglês, porque estas são as diretivas que tomamos e as escolhas que nós fizemos para estas conferências e, portanto, também para o próprio podcast. Espero, obviamente, que gostem, que continuem a seguir o canal, partilhem e subscrevam e vamos então à conferência.
So, thank you very much, all of you, for being here. For Podcast Há Conversa Com, it's such a pleasure to do this partnership with Nash. Of course, we consider ourselves entrepreneurs because we are doing something that do not exist in Portugal like does exist on other countries, like United States of America. I don't know if you know, but there is some statistics very interesting. Like 3% of the American people per week goes to the cinema. And per week, 15% of Americans listen or watch podcasts. So here we can see that the podcast will be the future of social media, etc. Because you can choose whatever you want to listen and when you want to listen and where you want to listen. So this is a big revolution. And you can have people like one of you talking on a podcast show and expressing their own opinions. So we know that all the journals and televisions have someone behind them with interest, with some opinion. So this is a revolution of the mindset. And thank you again for receiving us. In the podcast page of Facebook, there will be a picture of this poster, so you can introduce your own questions and I will read them and you will answer them, okay? So we can have here a dynamic. Of course, I invite you all to subscribe podcast and in YouTube and help us growing up. So now I'm passing you, Miguel.
Which one?
You, my right, Miguel Fontes. Asking you what for you is being entrepreneur and why you created StarUp Lisboa, for instance.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation and thank you for having me here this afternoon. To be honest, I didn't create anything at all because StarUp Lisboa exists already when I joined it. I'm the executive director of StarUp Lisboa since 2 years, the last 2 years, yes, from January 2016, something like that. And StarUp Lisboa was founded in 2012. Yes. 6 years, and what I can tell you about it, I assume that you know what is StarUp Lisboa. If not, I can explain briefly. StarUp Lisboa, it's an incubator of startups. Was born in 2012 by the will of the citizens of Lisbon, because we had and we still have a tool called participatory budget, and in that time one of the projects that it was elected by the citizens of Lisbon was precisely the idea to create in Lisbon, in downtown of Lisbon, an incubator for startups, and StarUp Lisboa was born by that in that moment. And City Hall of Lisbon decided in that moment to invite other partners to join the project, and that's why IAPMEI, that it's a public institute that supports small and medium companies, and Montepio Geral is a private bank, but from social economy, if I can say this, they joined City Hall of Lisbon in order to create this association that everybody knows by StarUp Lisboa, but indeed is AIL, Associação para o Empreendedorismo, Associação para o Empreendedorismo e Inovação de Lisboa, but the brand is StarUp Lisboa. So, what we do, we help founders of startups to develop their business, their ideas. we are basically focused on the early stage of startups in two verticals, tourism and retail, and the third one, it's not really nowadays a vertical, is tech. Everything, it's techno, so it's difficult to say that or to see this like a vertical. And what we do is to help them to grow and to develop their business. And how to do this? Basically, I would say in 5 ways. We help them with the mentorship. We have a lot of people helping the founders of startups in a certain moment of the life of a startup, and we have diverse profiles of people doing this job pro bono, mentors. Secondly, I would say we have a very good network with partners, strategic partners. Just give you some examples. Law firms, for instance, or tech companies like Microsoft or Amazon Web Service. Of course, it's also a part of our job. Mentors, partnership, community, it's really important for us. We really believe that it's important for who want to become an entrepreneur to learn from other entrepreneurs. So we try to create what we call a real community inside Startup Lisboa. Communication, of course, we try to help them, namely in terms of awareness and to become more known by the general public. And finally, we put them in contact with investors. So we do this match between the investors and the startups, and in the very summarized way to say that's what we do at Startup Lisboa. And for now we have almost 100 startups, because we don't have only startups inside our facilities. We work also with startups that are virtually incubated at Startup Lisboa. That means that they can have everything that I mentioned to you until now, but the only difference is they don't have a space inside Startup Lisboa. They are working in another co-work space or in another incubator or so on. So basically this is Startup Lisboa.
Okay. Thank you very much, Miguel Fontes. And Miguel Cordeiro, what is the role of empreendedor.com in the world of entrepreneurship?
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me for an entrepreneurship talk. It's a pleasure to be here. It's very fun to share our experiences here, and thank you for attending. Emprendedor.com was my first main project that I had. The goal of that project was to inspire, to help, and to support entrepreneurs. I say that we achieved more or less 50% of what we wanted to do. Okay, I think the project has 3-4 years, but it has a lot of ground to grow now. We are sorting it right now because we are in a phase. But what have we done? We basically created a repository of information. We also give voice to the entrepreneurship community, to the ecosystem, it's not mine. Oh, to remind me something. To help the entrepreneurship community to give voice to the entrepreneurs, to their projects, to the events and everything. So basically, I think we achieved that. We have a lot of articles and posts daily. I think we have room to grow also, and we also had a lot organized and supported lots of events of entrepreneurship, mainly Startup Weekend, networking events also, and last year we made the Feira de Empreendedorismo Lisboa, Entrepreneurship Lisbon Fair, which was an adventure to do that. And it was good because we achieved to get there more than 4,000 people, and I think that was a stepping stone for what we wanted to do. It was last year in March. I think the project has to grow, and we are turning so that it can grow. we need sustainability in the business. So we are now going for a technology business. Okay, we're starting. We're not doing any more fairs. Okay, physical fairs. So we're starting. We started a new business, which is MediInvest, which is like the philosophy of entrepreneurship of entrepreneur.com, which is a collaborative project. So we have lots of several companies that share their knowledge, their networking, and their skills to develop new technologies. We're developing a new technology in virtual reality, which is a virtual reality fair, and that project has more or less 1 year. Let me just tell you that how it started. It was started one year ago because the fair had not profit, the contrary, non-profit, about 8,000, 10,000 euros. Okay, so the next fair that I wanted to do, that we wanted to do, had to be a lot bigger. So it was orçamento of more than 100,000 euros. So I went to I had difficult to sleep for 2 months because of that. So we started to think, and then we came up with the virtual fairs project. So that's our goal. Basically is that, and we also are betting everything in not only in developing technologies in virtual reality, but also in internationalization, because we believe that every startup has to go abroad, has to have partners abroad, has to sell abroad, and everything. So that's what we are doing now, and we have been to China 2 times, and I think we have some results, mainly because one of our projects is being presented there in next month in Asia Pacific Business Forum, and I think I'm looking forward to see where that will guide us, the project. I think it's a Portuguese project that I have here, and I can show you after after the meeting, and let's see where it leads us. I hope that we can maybe help build a framework for internationalization of companies, of startups, and every business. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Miguel Cordeiro. And now, Pedro Antunes, you have already been on the podcast recording the Partido Liberal, no? Iniciativa Liberal. It was such a pleasure having you, and it's nice to meet you here again. So, for you, as business angel, but also as vice president of Iniciativa Liberal, what is for you the role of being a business angel, for example?
Well, let me just first say thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to be here back at NOVA. I was a student here as well, so I feel your pain. Just to give you a little bit of background on where I come from, I started my professional experience in the beer industry, which is a very nice industry to start with. It's fun, it's interesting, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about sales, you learn a lot about marketing, mostly. You learn a lot about beer, which is also interesting. Afterwards, I became a consultant, both in telecom and media. That's actually very good to learn about processes. It's very good to learn about how to deal with with customers and with team management. Then I became an investor. I started by with my family business to buy a newspaper. We restructured it, and then we sold it in around 9 months, if I'm not mistaken. And at the same time, I invested in a biotech company called Biopremier. That company was sold about 5 years later. It was about to close. Nova Capital at the time, now Portugal Ventures, wasn't available to continue to invest in the company. So we saw an opportunity, we went in, and 5 years later, we sold it to the biggest company in the world that works with analysis, called SGS. I don't know if you've heard of it. So it's been an interesting ride. In the middle of it, I decided to, well, somebody told me that I was a business angel in the middle. during all this time. I went to this event that was organized by the Business Angel Club from Lisbon, and somebody told me after talking to me, "Oh yeah, you're a business angel as well." Okay, am I? That's fine. What does that mean exactly? So now I have two companies that are that invest in startups, or better, that invest in early stage companies. Let's not call them startups. And we help them grow to grow past the first valley of death, which is going from project to an actual business. Not just making a company; it's very easy. It's about an hour and a half up the street over there, right? Making a business is a completely different thing, and most of the times, people in the projects are not that ready to become businesses. So they have a nice idea, they have some structure, some of them actually have a good business model, and we help them out with both money and with channels, with knowledge, a little bit of competition with Startup Lisbon in the sense that we help them with some mentoring in different ways, obviously, but it is mostly what we do. So not being busy enough last year, I was a little bit angry at the way things are being managed in the country. So with some other people that had already been dealing with this for about a year and a half before, we decided to start a political party. It's the first talk I have about the political party, so it's a different chip. So I became, in December 2017, I became vice president of Iniciativa Liberal, which is the newest party in Portugal with a liberal ideology. And we consider ourselves a political startup in the sense that a startup is not just a company, it's a company that wants to have a scalable business model. It wants to grow fast and it wants to get to their goals fast as well. So this is basically what I've been doing as a business angel. A project that looks for a business angel should be looking not just for money, but also for somebody that helps you understand the channels, helps you identify the relevant parties, helps you identify the relevant incubators where to go to, the relevant partners, as you were saying, the relevant way to go outside and find partnerships, the best strategy according to the experience we have. So we kind of become, I wouldn't say a babysitter, because they're not supposed to be babies, but we try to help them out quite a lot to go forward with their projects. Currently, I have my own startup as well. So I have the two business angel companies and the political party. So I think I'm pretty much full. We accompany some projects. In one of the companies, we just finished the first. We had a first round of 8 projects that we invested in. We killed most of them, which was great because that means that we didn't spend money with them. And we have now a couple that are working quite well and are very promising. In the other business angel company, we work focused mostly in the sea economy. And we have 2 very promising projects that we identified about a month ago in a competition that we needed to do, because unfortunately, despite all the good things that have been happening both in Lisbon and in Portugal in this entrepreneurship environment, people are still very afraid of starting their own businesses. And for the most part, they're also very unqualified to start their own businesses. So that is my starting position in that sense.
Thank you very much, Pedro. We now have a question, so keep writing your questions on our Facebook page. And we have one question that is from Rui Dias, and is asking, how important is the cooperation between governments, example Portugal and China, to promote internalization Portuguese companies, startups? Or companies or startups? Which one of you wants to answer?
Yes. sorry, the question is how important is the cooperation?
Is the cooperation between
from
governments?
government,
Yes, like
between
Portugal and
governments?
China.
It is very important, and has happened with China and Portugal. I see that there have been lots of missions that are taking entrepreneurs to China. Okay, namely, I work for an association which is AJEPS, Associação de Jovens Empresários Portugal-China, which basically 3 or 4 times per year takes. Last time it was 80, not 18, 80 entrepreneurs to China. Okay, alone in the mission. Okay, cool. Yes. Basically, those missions are normally to Macau, because it's an entry point for China, for the Portuguese startups, and then Hong Kong, and then Beijing, and then sometimes Shanghai. So basically, in March, in October, in November, at least, sometimes there is a 4th mission. We take people to China in those missions. This is very important, because China, basically going to China is going to Asia, is opening up half of the world to the startups, because Hong Kong, especially Hong Kong, is a gateway to the Asian market, and so I think it is very important. I don't know about the government initiatives so much, but maybe some of you can talk about it.
Miguel Fontes?
I don't know what to say, but to animate a little bit the debate and to create a debate, let me disagree a little bit. I don't see this like a critical issue, to be honest to you. When we are talking about startups, of course, it's nice to have a nice framework in the international relationship between different nations, of course, but it's mostly about themselves than about something else that it's outside. So in that sense, and only in that sense, I mean, I don't see this like a critical question for a startup. When a startup is born, from day one, is already international. Even I used to say that even the concept of internationalization doesn't make any sense when you are talking about a startup, because a startup, by definition, is a business model who is very replicable. How do you say that? Scalable. Yes, thank you. And that means that you can create here a startup, a business model, but by definition, that means that it's something that you can, since the day one, to address your value proposition to the world, and not only for a domestic market. And in that sense, I would say, of course, it's important if you are in the European Union to know that you are sharing the same kind of regulation, the same kind of law environment. That is important, because that helps a lot in order to do that process. And of course, it's different when you go in different geographies with different law and framework from regulatory entities, for instance. But only for this. But for the business itself, I would say has nothing to do about governments. But in that case, I'm also a little bit liberal, even coming from the left part of the of the parties of the society, to disclose where I'm political. I see myself. But in that case, I'm very liberal too. I don't see that the governments, they don't play a major role in this game.
Mm-hmm. Just to add, I agree with you, Miguel. That's because that's why there are associations that join together entrepreneurs to do that kind of stuff. But even though there are lots of business that needs to get partners abroad, and I think that the missions are the best way to do that, and that's what I'm trying to do, and it seems been working. Let's see next time.
Pedro Antunes.
Well, Miguel stole my pitch, so I completely agree. I think that governments should, yeah, exactly, for fun. Well, both actually, because you agree. In the basic part, you do agree, which is governments should exist to try and raise barriers, to try to help with transparency, with processes. But this is a very high-level institutional thing that they need to do to grow their markets. And that's obviously good for entrepreneurships and entrepreneurs and companies in general. Startups are a different breed. They should, when they start, they should already be international, as you said. They should already be thinking which countries they are available in, which countries they can grow to quickly. The thing that I do disagree with this, Miguel, is that when the government grabs a few people, or when the government does, not associations are a different issue, and goes to them somewhere with a politically charged agenda to some country to try and sell the idea that our companies are good or better or whatever, we are spending way too much money to do something that good companies are doing by themselves, through associations, through a number of other channels. And the government should not be choosing champions in that. Companies do that themselves fairly easy. Yes, it is a lot easier to go into Iran when you have a political contact there, but maybe Iran is not the place for a company to go to for that reason. Or maybe there is some work to be done between the two countries, between the European Union and Iran, to simplify the barriers that exist. So, for me, the most important part that the state has, the government has, is mostly to raise barriers, to make sure that there can be more international trade, there can be more movement of people. So that is more, not justice, but rule of law that is standard or more standardized, so that we can know what we count on when we arrive there, so that our property is also insured. So it's in that way, if I understood your position correctly.
Yes, I agree also.
Let me say this: we don't have a strategy for that, but we don't see this like a major problem. Yeah, we see this process like a part of the process. That means it's important for the maturity of a startup, and also for the maturity of the entire ecosystem, to have startups with that kind of experience. So I don't see when someone goes abroad to Silicon Valley or to London or to Berlin as a big problem. And if it's only, let me say this, only a moment during the process. Of course, it can become a big problem if you are talking, as I assume that's your point, that they are leaving the country, and it's a question of retention of talent. And for that, the only strategy is to develop and create here all the best conditions that you can have in order to retain it and attract talent from abroad. And I would say we are in a very good moment. In the results, they speak by themselves, and I would say for sure we are doing the right things, because we are now a lot of entrepreneurs coming from abroad trying to establish their startups here in Portugal, namely in Lisbon. We have a lot of investors. They are discovering now Portugal in that sense too, and it's something new, because you are right. For years and years, startups after the early stage, it was almost mandatory. It was obliged to go abroad to look for investment, because here it was almost impossible to have it. You have a few business angels, but VCs, really venture capitalists, it's almost something that until now we can, my hand it's enough to say where they are. And to provoke a little bit Pedro, if it wasn't the public entities through Caixa Capital, which was part of a public bank, or Portugal Ventures, with a public entity, it was almost impossible to find someone available to invest in startups after the first 100,000 euros, the or something like that. And that means that it's changing now. And even those who are in the private sector investing on startups, business angels and so on, they are doing this, and it's important to know that, with public money. That's something that sometimes people don't like to say, because just to animate the debate, don't take this personal, Pedro, but we are in Portugal, we live always in that situation, a little bit tragical or comic situation, that even those who see themselves like liberals, they do this with public money. And when it's the case, it's a question of transparency to say, okay, this is public money involved. When you have public measures coming from public policies, investing in business angels, saying, okay, you can invest your own money, but an half come from public money again. It's important that the society knows that. That means that all of us, we are doing a big effort in order to promote and to create this ecosystem. And I think that it's correct in my perspective. Why? Because I really believe on market, of course. I believe that it's the major role for that, it's for the companies, but I really believe that the states, they can play in high level important play to in the game. So that means what? That means they can, of course, stimulate more or less a good environment in order to attract and to develop, in that case, an ecosystem of startups. And it was the case in Portugal. Was what we are living now. It's not for azar. Let me say it was because in City Hall of Lisbon, now, who is the Prime Minister of Portugal, António Costa, was the mayor of Lisbon, and in that time he was very committed with this vision to create a local ecosystem in Lisbon, and it was very supportive. So he played an important and critical role in that time. At the same now, like he's in government as Prime Minister, because it's a very supportive Prime Minister helping the entire government in order to develop this kind of initiative that they really believe that they are useful in order to develop the ecosystem. And it's very easy to understand this with the examples. I assume that in this room everybody knows about Web Summit. Web Summit was really critical to change the way that Portugal is perceived abroad. It's really difficult for someone coming from a tech company, and it still is, to sell a service or a product, imagine in the United States or in Germany or United Kingdom, and say at the same time, we are a Portuguese company. And that's something that we are changing now, because we are no longer just a country with nice people, with nice food, with very good landscapes and so on, but we see ourselves and we want to promote Portugal as a country, an innovative country, with a tech country, and for that, public entities, public policies, they are very important in order to do it. The question is, and in that case I completely agree about Pedro said, is each one must know what is his role. That means what we don't should expect from a state point of view is to doing this kind of concrete business and to help this company instead of the other one. I'm not saying about this. What I'm saying, it's important to have policies, and it's about policies that help to develop the national economy, and I really believe that for that, states and governments and local authorities, they can play a major role.
I think that you started your question the wrong way. It's not what Startup Lisbon is doing to keep companies here, is what are you able to do that as well. I mean, obviously Startup Lisbon has a good head start on what you can do, but you can also do quite a lot. I mean, obviously, we're a small country. We don't have a good financial system. It's not strong. There is a big crowding out effect in the funding from a lot of institutions that are state-owned. So it is very difficult to get money here. Public funding, it is one of the big ways that business angels and other entities get money to be able to invest. I completely disagree with the model that exists, but it does exist. So if we want to compete in the same level as the other ones, we have to be realistic. I'm a liberal, I'm not a dumb, an idiot, right? So curiously, I in my companies, I don't use public funding, except for development, which from the European funds. And obviously, if they exist, I am going to use it. It is part of the reality. It's a little bit like the Dalai Lama says, right? If there's a problem and there's a solution, there's no problem. If there's a problem and there's no solution, there's no problem either. It's a fact. So you just use it, right? Getting back to what the government can do more, because it gets to a point where the government, when it starts, it makes sense in a small country like we are to create some infrastructure, to create some funding. To Portugal Ventures, I think has a part. Well, I think it has had a part. I think the part has passed. I think it is time for Portugal Ventures to stop doing what it's doing. And I believe that we are at the moment where the government should start getting out of the way of entrepreneurs and the startup scene in Portugal. I think that they should be focusing on things that are cheaper to do and more relevant, which is, for example, to create a simpler legal system, a simpler tax system, an administration that works faster, which is working a lot faster than it used to. We're a little bit older. We can still remember what it was to create a company, 20 years ago? How much would that take instead of an hour? So there's a lot of things that has been done that is relevant by the government in the right things. I think that the funding, the initiatives that the government has been doing for helping with funding in companies has been interesting as well, very relevant as well. I think it is time to start weaning the entrepreneurship scene out of subsidies, out of Portugal Ventures, and out of all of those institutions. We need to create a better, more robust financial system. I wouldn't say in Portugal. I would say in Europe by as a whole. It doesn't really matter. I don't care if the money comes from a bank in Germany or a bank in the UK or a bank in Lisbon. It's more or less the same. What I care is that I have a project, I have a good idea, I want to implement it, and I want to lead that sector in the world, and that's it. So I don't really care where the money comes from. But for that, sorry? It is. Ours is a little bit more colorful. But that's the thing. You shouldn't be asking what is Startup Lisbon's idea to keep companies here, because part of it is out of their hands. Another part is a strategy that is good for Startup Lisbon, but it might not be good for your company. They might be focusing on the type of company that does not fit with you. So you should start to look at the reality of the country that you have, and in some situations you have to pack up and leave. If you want to do a startup in movie production, you should leave. You should go to, I don't know anymore whether it's Hollywood or Bollywood, one of the two. I mean, whichever. But you should start doing something. That is the first thing. Sorry.
Now I know why they put me in the middle.
we agree quite a lot. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I'm kidding.
Just the details.
Yes. To respond to your question, I believe that is the ecosystem that the organic growing of the ecosystem of the Portuguese ecosystem, especially of Lisbon, and also the other Porto, Braga, and Coimbra is following. Is that what's keep us here? Okay, because there of course we have great sun, great activity, great people, and great food, and also we have great talents also. but it's growing, the ecosystem, and as Miguel told, the Web Summit was a great event for the startups to have an opportunity to have what they didn't have before, which was investment, which was contact with foreign investors, with international networking, with showing up their product abroad. So I think and that was an event which the government invested in Web Summit, and I think it was very necessary to do that. I agree that governments should have more a regulatory role about things, but I think that some investments, some key investments that were made, like Startup Lisboa, like also the Plano de Empreendedorismo, which was launched now with the Rede de Incubadoras, with Startup Voucher, with everything. I think we need that also. We need those mechanisms, and we need that the government to finance them also. And finally, just to heat up the debate, I think that Lisbon and Portugal are competing for startups, are competing for technology. The future, one of the future is in technology, whether it's environment technology, IT technology, internet, and everything. So many cities in the world are competing roughly with lots of public investment, great public investment. So basically, I've seen that lots of cities, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, and also have their own large products. But basically, they are building cities inside cities, or cities next to cities that are pole of attraction to the technology, to the sustainable energy and everything. Also in Asia, China is doing that. Well, it's another world. Okay, it's public investment, and also new city in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, everything. So cities are doing that. So I think that if we want to follow them, we will have to do that. Because if not, we lose the advantage to get those startups maybe in 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. So I think we need that too.
Now we all agreed that the government and the state have a lot of power and grabbing companies and create them and give them public funding. But how can the government promote entrepreneurship? And we already talked about Web Summit, and the question is, okay, Web Summit, all companies, startups come from all the world to Lisbon, but how many do they stay here, and how many startups from Portugal or Lisbon stay here and don't go another country, another city? Because it is a great event, like Miguel Fonseca said. It was promoting by Lisbon, by António Costa, now by the government also. And how can the entrepreneurs receive more tools, more knowledge and connections? Because if there is a question, you can't almost do anything without money. And if someone is poor but they have a really good idea, how can do that? Because if some company heard an idea, they can stole them, and because the guy is poor, no one believe it, no one will support them. That's why I want to ask you is, how can entrepreneurs grow up and promote themselves?
Before, you also asked what type of things can the government do as well to promote entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And there's quite a few things besides the ones that we've been talking. There's one word I really love, which is sustainability, which means that you should actually think to grow. Yes, sure, but if you don't grow in a sustainable way, you're just a bubble, so it doesn't really matter much. You can actually make money with bubbles, but it's just your money. It's you don't build anything from it. So it depends on your frame of mind. But cheap ways for the government to promote entrepreneurship. Education. if you start teaching kids about finance, they will grow up to know better how can they can use their assets, whether it's intangible or tangible, to build up their wealth and to be able to actually promote themselves as entrepreneurs. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter. They both already know that they should wait for the change. Okay, they don't just grab a note, give the note, and that's it. They both know that they have a piggy bank where they should put some of the money that I give her. And financial education is something that is lacking very much at the very young level. That is one way of promoting entrepreneurship. The other one is to be even better at our administrative processes to make it a lot easier, so that a person does not need to spend much time thinking about it. You just go somewhere and you make a company in 1 hour and a half. You need to contact the financial authorities. It should be easy, it should be everywhere, it should be instant. So these are the type of things that we could be doing a lot. And obviously, a lot of technical education as well, which means that universities, schools must be a lot more demanding. What happens to somebody here at this school if they have a 9.5? Do they pass or do they fail?
They pass.
I'm asking.
They pass.
They pass, which means that somebody that knows less than half passes. That does not seem very demanding. And I'm not being, I've had some 9.5s, okay? So I'm not being a hypocrite saying everybody can be a great student or whatever. We should be able to fail. We should learn how to fail. But we should be a lot more demanding about the education that we are giving ourselves, the infrastructures of education that we're giving ourselves. About the Web Summit, I loved it. Didn't go, didn't listen to much of it, loved it. There's a lot of good marketing, a lot of good, and in the best sense possible. I'm not being ironic about it. It does sound, I know, my tone of voice is a little bit like that. Good revenue for Lisbon, good revenue for the monuments even. So it was a good initiative. It was a very good initiative for some types of companies and some types of startups here in Lisbon, here in Portugal actually, and that's great. There's a lot more that needs to be done, and we need to stop talking about startups, start talking about entrepreneurship. Because being an entrepreneur does not mean having a startup. A startup is a global domination business model. It is not a company to be rich. Well, it should also be that. But it is a global domination plan. It is nothing else. It's the same thing for the unicorns. The only thing that unicorns have in common with mythology is that we know they don't exist in reality. So forget a little bit about startups. Start talking about business models. Start talking about businesses, building sustainable businesses. Some of them will grow to be startups by themselves, and sometimes with a little bit of help of government in smaller countries like Portugal. Sorry.
I completely agree on about what you said, because and it's interesting to see the way you use startups concept, because you see, some of them, they will become startups, and normally people refer startups like the first stage of a company, and it's completely I completely agree on that. I don't know if you know, but Dun Bradstreet's considered in Portugal every Portuguese company created in the last 12 months is a startup. And that's why you see in the newspapers news like startups are responsible for 45% of new jobs. Of course, it's not. They are not startups. They are new companies. Which is completely different. And startups, it's a kind of business model. And what defines the startups? Must be innovative. Of course, doesn't mean that must be disruption innovation. Can be different types of innovation, but must bring something new to the market, must be very close to the technology scene, because it's the only way that you have in order to scale in the fast way. And time, of course, it's important. That's why we cannot use this concept and the definition to refer any kind of realities. So I completely agree about what you said. And what it's important, it's entrepreneurship and to create a sustainable environment for that. And answer to your question, I would say just imagine we are living now a critical moment in Portugal that it's completely new, and it's the result at least of the last 25 years on coming from public policies, namely in the development of our institutional educations and our research centers and so on. That's because we, at least in the last 25 years, we are supporting good universities with good public policies in national scientific research and so on, that we have now what we call the most qualified generations from ever in Portugal. And when we are talking about startups, what you see, it's not that kind of entrepreneur that is a smart guy with a smart idea. No, it's a very qualified kind of entrepreneurship. We are talking about people that are developing projects in reality, virtual reality, in artificial intelligence, in blockchain, in machine learning. I don't know. What I'm saying is we are talking about qualification, about it's not just and I completely disagree about what you said, even maybe you don't know what you said about it, sorry to say this, about ideas. It's a myth. The business, it's not a question of an idea. Someone stole my idea. Business is about execution. I can have, every day I have 100 ideas, great ideas, but that doesn't mean anything at all. The important is the capacity that I have to deliver it, to do it. And the secret is on the execution. It's not only about idea. Of course, idea, it's important in order to have inspiration, to do something new. But at the end of the day, what matters really is the capacity that we have, or we don't, to do it, to deliver it. And the government, it's a little bit the same. I completely agree. We have to do a lot of things at the same time. It's not a question to say, let's focus on this and forget this. No, the governments, they have always that kind of problems. They must do at the same time face different challenges, because it's difficult to prioritize one instead of the other when it comes about, for instance, the development of a ecosystem of startups. And what I see, it's important to do it in different and several ways. In each moment, you need to have clear what is, of course, the priority. And now I would say it's continue to help to developing of our national education system. That means that we need to have good university, good schools to promote the literacy of our kids in terms of, namely, coding. It's important. It's something new. We need to change the way that we see the schools and the way that our kids, they are learning at this moment in our schools. I completely agree on that. But we have so many things to do at the same time. It's really difficult to choose just one dimension of the problem, because of course means that you should pay attention about the tax regime, but you should pay attention about marketing of the country. That's why Web Summit, it's important. It's not only because it's not only important for a particular or a company or a startup. It's important for the entire country. It's a good way to promote Portugal outside. For a lot of people, it was the first time that they came to Portugal and they see us in a different perspective. I used to say I don't want to be unpolite with anyone, but imagine that we are talking about other countries, I don't want to say anyone, but from different geographies, coming here to Europe, saying, we have very good companies with very good solutions, very innovative solutions and tech solutions to sell, to implement in your society. Probably we would look to that, people saying, really, from where do you come from? And until now, that was the case. It was really difficult for a Portuguese entrepreneur to sell a solution in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and at the same time saying, I'm Portuguese. And that's what we need to change. And we are changing that. Yes, for sure. Of course, I would say it's changing. No, please.
Sorry, Miguel, for the interruption, but that really hit the spot with me. I don't hear a lot of Germans talking about it's good to be German. I hear a lot of them saying about German engineering. They have proof of that. I hear a lot of French talking about a lot of specifics about the French technology, but not it's good to be French. So the idea behind, let's just say that, I don't agree with the idea that we need to sell the country, to sell the companies, because sometimes we can do things without, we don't really need to say that we're Portuguese. Bio Premier was a company that for about 2 years was the only one being able to do a very specific thing in the world. A thing that is completely changing the way that you do food diagnostics in fraud, in economic fraud. We never had to say that we were Portuguese. It wasn't even a disadvantage. It wasn't neither a disadvantage nor an advantage. We just went there, we showed them the results, and that was trusting. That was the trust that they needed. They saw the results. And in my opinion, that is mostly what we need to do. I understand the idea behind saying, I love being Portuguese. I've lived in 4 different cities. Wherever I went, everybody loves us. That's great. That does not mean that they love our products. That does not mean that they love our technology, our design, whatever. We need to show, we need to have proof of concept. We need to have companies that show that we are good. But that's not the reason why people are going to buy things for us. That's the reason why they go to Google, and if there's a name of a company based in Portugal, they don't go, hey, not that one. You know? It's like the minimum thing that we need. It's not the other way around. It's not being proud of being Portuguese. You were born here. You had no choice.
In order to what you say, I think now Portuguese are proud.
Yeah, that is a different thing.
Also, the companies are doing a great job to sell what we do here. Okay, I think it's a different journey.
Okay, then I agree with you. Sure.
10 years ago, with 0 startups or companies or whatever. But I think now people are a little bit delusional with the word startup.
Yeah.
Startup doesn't mean successful, doesn't mean profit, doesn't mean anything like that. I think Portuguese people now, it's like, I don't need to say I'm Portuguese. My
mindset?
My way of life is good for them. It's not a thing like they don't accept anymore. They accept it because all the good stuff we sell now in the tech industry, food, tourism, all the sectors are great for others. This is what I think.
Yeah, but that's not being proud of being from Portugal or being Portuguese. That's what you said. It's about the fact that you're Portuguese is not going to hurt you. That is the different thing. It is the first time in my lifetime, which is getting longer. It is the first time that I see people coming up against Germans, against Americans, against Chinese, against whatever, and being a Portuguese, they don't see it as a liability. Okay, whichever sector they're in, whether it's engineering, whether it's IT, whether it's biotech. I mean, we had a conversation with one of the most advanced biotech company in the food fraud industry, and they were slightly pissed off, I think, by the fact that we were able to do in about 6 months what they had been trying to do the last 10 years. Okay, so that's the point. We had to have a peer conversation. We didn't have a conversation of, oh yeah, but our food is great. You know what I mean? Sometimes you go, you show something. The thing itself has value, but you're insecure, and so you say, we have great bacalhau. You know? Sorry.
Let me just guess that's it, but I can understand what you are saying, even completely agree with what you said. Let me say this. I don't know if you know, but I come back again to Web Summit just because everybody knows Web Summit. It's a good example, not because Web Summit is the only thing in the world. Let me clarify this point. But one of the reasons why Web Summit chose Portugal and Lisbon to do it, Web Summit here, was the fact that Codacy, a Portuguese startup, won the pitch competition 1 year before in Dublin. And everybody was surprised because what was expected and normal is in that final stage of the process was to find a company coming from the United States, from the United Kingdom, and everybody was really surprised when they discovered that Codacy was a Portuguese company, a Portuguese startup. And what Codacy does, Codacy, it's a kind of automatic corrector as you have in our computers for writing, for code. And they help a lot and they increase a lot of efficiency on the process. And they are still living and I hope making money, but of course it's difficult. But we shouldn't be naive about it. And in that's the only point where I disagree a little bit about what Pedro said, because my dream is, and I completely agree on the vision, that doesn't matter where you come from. Não deveria ser isto, should be a factor. But the fact is, it is. And it is, if it is, we must take this in consideration and to work with. And in that case, it's very important to have a few good examples of Portuguese technology, Portuguese engineers, Portuguese design and so on, to show the world and to say, do you see, this is good and this is Portugal. And the order matters. I didn't say this is Portuguese, this is good. I say this is good and it's Portuguese. It's a nuance, if you want to be about what you are trying to say, because I think everybody agrees, and I don't say this because we want to be everybody in the same position, but it's the fact. But you are right. We are changing this, and just to tell you one thing that I think it's important in this particular auditorium with students and so on. I don't know if you are aware, but we are living, maybe for the first time in our history, the opportunity to change a little bit our landscape in terms of economical background as a country. Until now, until the digitalization, it was always a problem to see Portugal like a peripheral country at the end of Europe with all the barriers that we know. And now, for the first time, we have the chance to do things from Portugal to the world, and the geography doesn't matter. If you are doing software, it's completely irrelevant to do it from Lisbon or from New Delhi or from Silicon Valley. And the same with the apps. And when you are doing this, we don't have no more excuse to fail as a country. And in the past we had very good excuses because it wasn't just a question of I want to succeed. We had some structural barriers in the world competition of the nations. And now, maybe for the first time, or if it's not for the first time, at least for centuries, we can do different. And that's why I want to tell you, and it's not to be very optimistic and to become a fool and say, let's do it, and that kind of illusional world, but it's happening. And it's really nice to live in that moment and to see so many companies, so many people to do the difference in nowadays, and it's something.
I agree with you all. I think Portuguese is growing. Portuguese momentum is growing outside, and it's because it's organic. Everything is growing. A few months ago, I was with one of the Secretary of State of São Paulo, and he said, "How can Lisbon grow so much? How can you have so much startups which are financed, and we cannot do that in São Paulo? And São Paulo is a large larger city than Lisbon. So this is happening. It's like a miracle, you know. It's like the second conquering that we're going to do for the world. And now I believe I've believed that before, but now I believe it a lot more. So I think the work we are doing it's fantastic, especially in Lisbon. Web Summit is an event that is very cost efficiency, because we pay, I don't know, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million with expenses, and the indirect result we have from this event which is prolonging in time, it's you cannot value that. So that's very well spent and efficient money from government, for example. Education. We'll talk about education. We are going for a new technology revolution that is going to happen much faster than the other ones. Okay, so we must adapt. We must adapt to that, and we need to change our education system. Miguel talked about the kids learning code, but not only code, lots of soft skills that they need. Entrepreneurship from 10 years, from the age of 10 years, they need to learn lots of things, and not only to learn about content, okay, about history, about everything. They need to learn skills. They need to make projects. They need to make their own entrepreneurship projects along the way. And I think that is what the challenge we face to do that, because technology will change the face of the earth. Okay, 15 years ago we did have this. Okay, and everybody exchanged their computer by a small window. Okay, with a rough input thing, because of mobility. Okay, and I think that in the future, the new technologies, especially virtual reality, because virtual reality, you're not putting this in front of you, you're putting a new world in front of you, okay, that you can interact with people, you can socialize, you can do business there, you can amuse yourself, you can learn and everything. So we are going to pass a new revolution that will come very quickly, and we must be prepared for that. For example, it's virtual reality, it's artificial intelligence, it will be blockchain, the new environment technologies, everything, batteries, solar, electric vehicles, everything. We must prepare for that, and I think yes. That's
Just telling you two stories with the podcast. There is worldwide a movement called Podcast Movement, which the podcast applied to be part of them, and we are accepted already. And they have a big summit they will do this year in Philadelphia. There will be more than 20 countries representing their own countries. Portugal, we have Podcast Há Conversa Com. It is a very huge compliment for us. They ask us if we had some support by our government. We have no funds by my pocket only. So, and they asked it. It's Portugal, the country of Ronaldo, for instance. And we said, yes, it is. It's also the country from Vasco da Gama. And yes, it is. Okay, so you all in schools, you have a worldwide in front of you. And I said, sometimes yes, sometimes no. What we need to learn with this globalization is to open our minds and think further. Think without boundaries, without frontiers. Because the money and the ideas don't have colors, don't have frontiers, don't have nothing like that. The past month, I received in my mailbox an invitation from a company based on London, which is a movement of citizenship. and they said, Claudio, we listened to your podcast, and I was wondering, but my podcast is always on Portuguese, so they asked someone to listen in Portuguese, of course, and they asked, Claudio, you have already had ministers, deputies, and would you like to come to London and participate in a big congress about citizenship? It was such a pleasure to me. And be Portuguese is not, it's a mindset, like you said. We must open our minds, feel other things, and enjoy the world we have in front of us. Because the sky is the limit, we all say that. But we have to apply it. We have to applicate all the days. And now we have another question in our poster. You can participate, and the question is, what are main difference now in the entrepreneurship field comparing to some years ago in Portugal based on real life experience, and what do you think it's still missing in this area in Portugal comparing to other countries?
I can start to answer that. I would say it's completely different. The landscape, it's changed in the last, let me say, 6 years, 5 years, 7 years, completely. When Startup Lisboa was born, it was completely different. Nobody was talking about entrepreneurship. We had a time in the past about it, in the 90s with ANJ, Associação Nacional de Jovens Empresários, but it was a different time. But about this kind of entrepreneurship that we are talking now with startups and so on, it's something new, and it was completely pioneer the job. And now when you see just Lisbon, just to talk about Lisbon, it's so different. We have different spaces for co-work. We have different players in incubation. You have different players in incubation, in the acceleration, doing acceleration programs and so on. So we have much a completely different reality in at this moment. So it's concrete. It's not something that we just are just talking about it. No, it's really concrete, and you can feel it. You can feel it when you see people applying when they apply to Startup Lisboa to become incubated Startup Lisboa, and you see that more and more you receive people from abroad, and it's a international environment. That's what you are seeing. That's a kind of validation. It's different when you see it here at university, a lot of people coming to study in Lisbon, to study in Portugal from abroad, and that brings a lot of cosmopolitan environment, which is really critical in order to develop all these stuff that we are talking about. And let me say about this, it's not in the answer, but diversity is one of the key factors if you want to be succeed in this world. And it's very important, because we are at a university, in a school, to say this. Diversity in nowadays, it's really important. It's important in terms of to be in contact with different perspectives, and that means that it's important to read and to hear people from different schools of thinking, and not only from one perspective. And it's something, because this is the world that we are living. It's important to work with other colleagues in other fields, in others, and it's important for a university to have that in mind. I always say this when I came to NOVA, it's always a pleasure, even if I came from ISCTE.
And I'm from Letras.
My background is from sociology, but let me say this. University means universal. So that means that it's really important to not close yourself in your field of studies. That means, for me, it's a pity to see the kind of organization that we have, where you put social science in one corner, economical and management in another corner, technology in another corner, and what we need and what world wants is to have that kind of profile where you can learn from different areas. And when someone asks me, what do you think it's important to a startup to be succeed, I always say, I don't know the answer, of course, but what I say is, I never see 3 engineers to become completely succeed without having someone from other background on their sides, and the same with people from design, and the same with people from management, and so on. That means the good teams are that we have. You can find a great CTO, of course, but at the same time you have a great mind on marketing, another one very focused on financial. And if we know that from reality, my question is why we still are living in that sort of world with this kind of barriers. Why MBA becomes such a success product in the universities? Because maybe at the last 25 years it's this only. We don't have a lot of products like an MBA where you can mix so many areas of knowledge in just one program, and that's something that we should do at this moment in the university. You should learn not only about financial issues but also with people from sociology, and people from sociology should learn with you from management and from economics. The same with the techie guys in Caparica and so on. And it's a kind of challenge that we should pay attention if you want really to be succeed in this world that applies not only for that kind of diversity that I mentioned, but even cultural and plural perspective. It's also important, and that's it. I don't want to monopolize that issue, but let me say this. I see myself today, for instance, here. That's the best way to partnership with university. That means I don't pay a lot of attention about formal convenience and so on. I try to be always available to participate in that kind of debates. I do a lot of that kind of sessions in a lot of faculties and a lot of universities that we are doing here. We are open always to people coming from universities, not only from Portuguese university, but from abroad, to visit us at StarUp Lisboa. We really believe that it's important to promote that idea of, okay, entrepreneurship, it's a critical way to challenge or to win the new challenge that we are living now. But let me be completely honest about this also. I don't see entrepreneurship as the key solution for every kind of problems. That's something that we didn't talk today. But normally, when you have that kind of pitch about entrepreneurship is the way to resolve all problems, namely the unemployment problem, I don't believe on that. I believe that entrepreneurship, it's really important, of course, but it's not, doesn't mean that it's for the only solution or the only way. And I really believe that's important for you after finish your studies to have other kind of experience. And the majority of entrepreneurs that I know and they have succeed before to start a company, they work in different environments and they learn a lot in the world of the enterprises and so on. So please don't take me wrong and assuming that I'm here saying let's do a company tomorrow, and because I think it's important before that for at least a few of you to have different again perspectives, diversity. I reinforce this. It's very, very important in all levels, national, local, international, but also in our personal lives.
To go back to that question, things have changed a lot, and now you have all the tools to start a business. Okay, before it was much harder to do it because the knowledge that, for example, we are passing here and other of us are passing, it's almost the same. Okay. It's basically you need a team, you need a diverse team, a diversified team, you need leadership, you need resilience, you need a mission or a vision with your company. First you have to get that right, the vision, the mission, and then the team. Okay, if you don't get it right, it won't come. Any business. So basically that has changed. So if you're coming to these events, you'll see that almost everyone talks about the same things, the same common things. So that enables us to, okay, just don't risk everything with your first business. It's normal that you will fail in the first time, and the second, I think I failed 4 times or 5, I don't know. It's completely normal, but you learn, and then you get the resilience, and then you don't freak out so much. I only freak out at Sundays, for example. Yes, it's very difficult, and then you learn to do things better. You learn to build a new team. You learn that it's not necessary a diverse team only. You need a diverse team. You need a team that has experience. For example, I was in the another debate last month, and the Alvaro from Aptoid said the error that he made was to get the best guys for the job, but he got the best guys for the job that didn't have the experience doing that. Okay, so that is errors that that I'm absorbing all that. Okay, and for the last year and a half or 2 years, I've been doing that, and that's how I learned. That's how I got better to do that. That's why I don't do the same mistakes, and this evolution, it's what will take us to have a thriving business and to be successful. So you have all the tools now, just to learn them, okay, and then you have to try, build a new team and everything.
Pedro.
I'm just going to complement with a very short comment. I think that the biggest thing that changed in the last few years, it has been a mentality shift. I felt it starting when I was coming here a while back, not that long ago. But it was starting. You would start to feel it. You would start to feel that people are getting a little bit more with Erasmus, for example. More people starting getting wanting to go to Erasmus or wanting to go abroad and leave the mother skirt to do something, to learn something abroad. And after this many years, what you said, what's your name? Sorry, Carla. What Carla said is that the end result is that we no longer see ourselves as, by being Portuguese, to have a liability or a disability in doing stuff. It is no longer an issue anymore. So that, to me, that is the most fundamental shift that we've been having in the last few years, and it has had the backbone that has come from the tools that have been created, apart from the government. I accept that, but it has. Fair enough. But it has come mostly from that. Technology has given us the chance to be a lot more freer in the way that we interact with the world. So we should interact with the world. Okay? Sure. I don't know if you can, but you should. Do you mean in university or overall? Secondary. Oh, you're from the secondary school. Okay. Well, one of the things is I was lucky enough to not be brought up in the Portuguese public system. Actually, let me correct that. With the Portuguese public curriculum. Okay. So what happened was that when I was in the 12th grade, I had about 12 or 13 different subjects, from history to art to music to mathematics. When I came to the university, I was shocked when I gave some lessons, I guess. Not lessons here, but support, lesson supports, tutoring, exactly, to a person in law, where she didn't know how to read a function in a graph. So I'd give her the function, and she couldn't understand the idea that the function was the y was the image of the x. So because she had métodos quantitativos, which I guess it's not even considered math. So that is one of the things that I think should change fundamentally in the secondary school, to learn more about how to deal with money, how to deal with your institutions, with the institutions that we have, both in Portugal and in Europe. how to deal with communication, how to deal with team building, which is something that most people forget, how to deal with languages. I mean, today, speaking 2 languages is not that special. Even Americans do it. So, fair enough.
Can I take
Here in Portugal, I would take a long time to answer that one.
Let me say this.
Miguel.
In my youth, I was member of National Council for Education as a representative of the students and so on. The young organization, it was the fact. And in that time, 20 years ago, I saw a study coming from Germany saying that at least in Germany, in the last 150 years, the public speech about education and the quality of education, it was always saying education is worse and worse and worse. And of course we know it's not the fact, but always we have that kind of perception that the education is always in the wrong direction. First part of my answer. The second one is I really need to change. It's not just a question of politician, because I will surprise you, maybe a few of you, about what I'm saying. We need to have in secondary schools people more ignorant about what they know, and I will explain what I mean by that. When you see someone with 14 years old studying biology, and you see all kind of stuff that that person should learn in that subject, I'm shocked, because I'm saying, in which time we are living? It's a school before Google. It's a school before this facility that you have during our conversation to have access of a lot of information. So what schools must do, in my perspective, is to teach how to learn and how to deal with information, and not try to put in 12 years all the contents that humanity has already in geography, in biology, in chemistry, in physics. It's stupid. It's just stupid. Why? Because after that, I assure you, not now, because you are still young, but in 20 years, nobody knows anything about it, about what they study in the secondary school about biology, geography, chemistry. In the opposite, I would say it's very important to give more space to certain aspects of our education. In my perspective, it's very important not only to deal with the new contents, but also with history. I don't accept in my country that after 9 years of school, if you are not in the humanities, you don't have no longer history. And I'm not just talking about Portuguese history. I don't understand a world where people doesn't understand where we are living in the way we are living. It's really critical that people understand what was the French Revolution, why we have government, why we have courts, why we have that kind of separation. Just an example, that means. And of course now we are dealing with the result of that people doesn't understand what is happening. We have a lot of information, and even people with good education, in terms of number of years of education, is corrupted by what I call the most dangerous virus of our age, that I call populism. I don't know if I said populism. And that means that it's one of the things that, for me as a citizen, it's really dangerous. When you feel that it's everything it's easy to solve and resolve, and if you don't have a solution, it's only because they don't want it. And one of the things that people should learn is we live in a complex society, more and more complex. And complexity means that you have a lot of interesting, the same in education, interesting of people, of unions, of associations, and so on. And the democracy means that you need to regulate all this diversity of interests, all this complexity. And that's something that you should learn in the school. And also, you don't see that kind of subject in the schools. By opposite, you have a lot of content in matters that you just need to have a mobile phone in order to have that kind of information. So less information, less contents, and one of the problems, I always joke about it, you can have the same guys from that field doing the curriculum. Of course, from someone from biology, for him or her, everything matters. It's not the right person to do the curriculum. You should ask to someone who's not from that field what it really matters. I know I'm trying to be provocative because I know, of course, people say, they don't have the skills to do it, but I don't believe on that. What I believe we should have an agreement about what is basic for each level of education. And it's not only to know how to read, how to write, how to make maths, because we are living on 21st century, of course. But for that, because we are not super guys, we need to have space in order to create projects, how to exercise our soft skills, to understand how you can work with your colleagues that are coming from different realities, about yourself, and so on. So I think my point is clear. I don't need to explain it a little more.
Just well, because I disagree with you in one thing. I think that we can do both. I think that we need to do. It is possible to have quite a lot and deep content, but teaching kids how to think mostly. Okay, and especially being critical of it. Every year, I went to a German school, so it was a different experience. You too? I feel your pain as well. But one of the great things about the school I went to is that every year I had a big discussion with one teacher. I was an annoying student, okay? And it was very important the way the school dealt with that. It didn't deal with it as, this is a misbehaved kid that just wants to be annoying, which partially was. But it was also the fact that they gave me the opportunity to actually do battle with the teacher, to actually be able to have a discussion, not on a peer-to-peer basis, but on a almost peer-to-peer basis. And that was very, very important to build up my critical thinking. It was very important for me to be able to base my facts. Whenever I went to talk with a teacher that I was having a discussion with, or with the director of the school, or whatever, I had to have my facts right. The idea of knowing how to think, knowing how to learn, knowing how to criticize, but also having facts. We need to learn facts as well. Okay, I think that when you say that the minimum that we need to learn in each level, what I believe the minimum is quite a lot. People should know Beethoven. They should know Ravel. They should know from literature to music, even if it's really, really boring to you when you're in the secondary school. Oh yeah, like crisp, like learning crisp in biology. Of course not. Sure, of course. No, I understand. I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. But my point is a little bit different. My point is that geology, for as boring as it may be, can help you to learn how to think. The subject. No, I'm okay with that. My issue is that one of the biggest factors, in my opinion, and I'm going on a tangent here, in relation to fake news, is the superficiality that people have on a lot of subjects. We have a lot of information, and it's mostly very superficial. So my advice to you, sorry, I was pointing to you, sorry. I did once hear the aula de praxe. Do you know aula de praxe, right? What it is? It's when a student gives a class doing the praxes, and we're basically doing a fake class. Okay, and I started writing down, the gimmick was that I started writing down what people should be learning, right? So I started with the English newspapers, from Financial Times, from whatever, you know. Then I went for the German ones. I knew how to write German, so it was a lot more credible. I trained how to write the French ones, and my French was more or less. 3 years with Fraudentia. That wasn't very, But then I went for the Italians. Okay, so I gave them like a list. It took me like 20 minutes to write that. So I was very committed to the whole thing. But the idea behind it is correct. You should read Science TV, you should read Scientific American, you should read Science, you should read The Economist, you should read a lot of stuff. You should read books. Even stupid books will teach you a lot of things. So you should read a lot. You should listen to books if you don't have time to read. So you should try and get as many content in your head as possible, because it will give you new ways to look at things. Even geology, which was something that was really boring to me when I was there. I agree. I'm with you on that. But even geology gave me a lot of insight in a lot of different things. For example, in a company about materials, when I was talking to them, and I actually remembered stuff, which was when it got me, when the chip came in. Yeah, I was like, what the hell? I did learn this with, I don't remember the teacher, Frau Madeira. So it is important to explore a lot of subjects and go deep with them. Sorry.
Okay. I think it is very important that kids have all those kinds of stimulus, and to learn how to think, to learn how to code, to learn how to communicate, to learn everything, make projects and everything. By the way, I want to work with that in the project I'm doing it. It is very important. Only then they will be prepared to innovate, to discover new things, to do research, to get in technology and everything. They have to have more time to do that, and not only time to learn things, okay, by the book. Afterwards, in university, I think there's something that needs to be done. There needs to be a new connection, a stronger connection between universities and companies and PMEs and small business enterprises, PMEs. Because they are those companies, and also the corporate ones, they are the engine. There are 99% are PMEs, are small business companies, and they are responsible for almost 70% of the labor of the employees. And most of the rest is the corporate companies. So I think we need to get those companies to embrace technology. Because if they don't, in a more globalized society that we live in, and that we will live with the new technologies, they will fail. Okay, they will cease to exist. So I think we need, for example, universities, companies, to cooperate with programs, with entrepreneurship, with everything. I think that is what lacks. That is what we need at the moment to transform better our society.
Thank you very much. And we will end soon. But when Miguel Fontes was talking about knowing the basics of history, I was come to me a story of a friend of mine, which is one of the bosses of Mosteiro dos Jerónimos, and he was on Haiti when the earthquake and the tsunami happened, and he came and he told me, Cláudio, do you know what they will trying to build again after the earthquake and the tsunami? And as I said, maybe the hospital, the police station, something like that. And he told me, no, they was trying to rebuild the museum, because they were afraid of their history go away with the sea, with the ocean. And this is very important. If we must stick together our memory, our history. And I say this not being just because I'm a degree in history, but it's very important to me to know what came to here and what we can go further about it. So now, after talking a little bit, you have a question, Carla?
A little
Please.
Yes, do it. Just do it.
Make it a good one. We'll have a lot of fun.
Carla, it's not fair to have that kind of question at that time because this is all a new discussion. But let me say, even if I understand what you are saying, I'm completely disagree about what is behind your question. Let me be very clear about it. I think it's very good that we are living in a society where everyone wants that their one kids goes to study to the university and learn and learn more. And when I hear normally that kind of pitch, and don't take me wrong, I'm not talking about you, I don't know you, but normally it's all kind of pitch that someone does about the kids and the son of the other person, not myself. Because for my kids, I want to see them at university, in the good universities. But of course, I can be at the coffee saying, oh, the country needs also people without any other skills. It's not possible to everyone to become part of the university. But pay attention about who normally has that kind of conception about the world what we are living, first of all. Secondly, what is changing is the role of the university. That means to become a doctor, a degree now, it's not the same value that it was in the past. And this is not because I want it. It's because of the fact that, I don't know if you have that in mind, but imagine that just 20 years ago, it's not, you don't need to be very in the past, 20, 25 years ago, in the local newspapers in Portugal, it was a news saying Mr. João António, son of, I don't know, became a doctor in this subject, and this is something relevant for a local community because it was so strange, because it was the only one sometimes for decades in that little community that achieved that goal. And now, for good reasons, because we are living in democracy, and democracy means that we have access what is good in life, and not only a group of privileges have that access. We have people studying in the university, but what is new is the fact that the same kind of jobs that you expect when your time of your parents they have been at university, it's changing because now what we will see is people with degrees, university degrees, doing jobs that in 20 years ago, 25 years ago, doesn't exist, or because it's it's a question of market. Because if I can take someone with a high level education for a job, why I should take someone with under education for the same job? I assume that the first one is more prepared to do it, and if the market saying it works, I will take it. That's why people now with just 9 years of studies, they don't find a job, or even with 12 years, they don't find a job. Or the majority of the yeah, of course, that's a problem. So I would say we are in the right direction about it. It's good to have a society that wants that to study, because in Portugal, and let me be a little bit sociologist about it, the way that the majority of working people had in order to, how do you say, to have a more social mobility was through the education. And I don't know if you have that in mind, but for the majority of people, you just need to go back one generation. And if you go back 2 generations, it's amazing in the positive way to see so many people studying at this moment at university, and their grandmother, their grandfather was an alphabet. You say that, an alphabet? Yeah. Illiterate. Yeah, that's amazing. That's something that you should be proud of it as a society. And sometimes I'm really shocked when I see people saying, "Oh, now everybody wants to go to the university." Please, exactly, that's what you want as a society. I know. I don't want to be unfair with you. I'm using what you say to make my point. Okay.
I went to, and my family went to, but it's not like I in my workplace right now.
I just want a short comment. You will not have bakers. You will have pastry designers. You know? Do you know what I mean?
Already have that.
No, but do you know what I mean? I mean, you have the chefs, you have the whatever, and the beautiful thing is that everybody will have money to buy it. So it won't just be the richest ones.
Universal
No.
Basic income?
Oh no. Let's not start with that. No. Let's not. Please, let's not start with that. No. What I'm saying is that I don't know if we're. Is this like the last comment or something?
Yeah, and then final words.
Okay, so I won't start with my final words because it goes well with what you're saying. So I'll say them later. We'll see.
Just to make it brief, I agree a little with Miguel. I think we live in a competitive society, so if the other one is doing that, you have to do it also. So basically, if we don't change the rules of the game, if we don't have a type of I don't know, of school different with each other, if it's less years, it will seem like okay, you're undervalued from that one. So I think we must change how we learn and how we learn things, and maybe get into the work process, to the job faster in while in university or something, but not with less years. Final words.
Final words, Miguel Fontes. Any comments? Final comments?
Thank you for having me here with you. It was a very nice session, and please, if you want, you can always invite me for another session, another debate, because you are a very good audience. You're really committed with this subject, and that's it.
Miguel Cordeiro.
Thank you very much. It's very. I'm very pleased to be here because even when I'm here and I say the things I say, I'm learning also, and also from our guests, but also from myself, and my ideas are stronger, and that is a very good thing, and that is a thing that entrepreneurs need. You know, they need to convince themselves, they need to talk with other person, and they need to talk to other people so that they can have more confidence in what they're doing. After this, I will show up a demo of a virtual reality project that we are working. If you want to see it, please, it will be 5 minutes more. Thank you.
Pedro.
So just to sum up, as you might have gathered, I am a short-term pessimist, but a long-term optimist. Okay. In the next few years, you will fail a lot. You'll do a lot of mistakes. 3-4 times, you said? Yeah, that should be the. After that, you should say, I'm more or less ready to start doing stuff. And things will get a little bit harder. As Carlos was saying, unemployment will grow. There will be a lot of social issues in the coming years. Not just from AI, but from the revolution that is happening now anyway, from the international competition. So that will happen. Inequality will grow a lot, but we will all be much, much richer. We will all be able to do a lot more things. You cannot imagine how different our life is in terms of access to things when we relate to the things that when I look at my kids and what they have in relation to what I had at the time, it's not even the same sport. Okay? It's a completely different thing. We will also be much freer. We have been getting a lot more freedom than we understand, I think. We will also be a lot more powerful to do things as citizens, to do things as political parties, to do things as associations, to do things as entrepreneurs. We are able to reach a lot more further than anybody else has done before. We will be working more about our personal realization, but we will also be our focus will also be to make things happen a lot more than before. And we are at a time, and I think that we would all agree with the statement, where it's for the first time in humanity's life, anybody can actually be a factor to change the world. Even if it is a small part, even if it's in a small scope, but you can change the whole world in that. And any one of us can do that. And that is not just a pipe dream or anything. It is actually something that you can do. You just need to choose your scope. Okay? I would also like to thank you for the invitation. It has been a lot of fun. I have to say that students today are a lot more participative than in my time. In my time, we would have had like one question or something like that. And it wasn't that long ago. Okay? So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you in the name of Podcast for this partnership with Nash. Thank you, all of you three, for these comments, for this knowledge we all share. Thank you, all the audience, for the questions you have made or participate, and we will do more of them next month, of course. And thank you very much, and see you next